All right, so today we are moving into creating the histogram from your table that you have, from your frequency table. So yesterday we made a table based on kind of this scenario. So we have this basketball star, Jim Shorts, who we recorded the number of points he scored in 20 different games and created this frequency table from that data to help us create our graph. So, and I've just copied and pasted that table onto this slide. So things I need for my graph that's really important, we do not want to leave these out when it comes time for you to do your performance assessment, is a title for your graph so you know what the data represents. You need to label your X and Y axes. Your X axis will be your intervals. We've already decided those. We already know there's 5 different sets of intervals or bins that we will be labeling along the x-axis, and your y-axis is your frequency. So this is your x-axis and this is your y-axis basically. Things you want to keep in mind: you want to use a straight edge if at all possible. If you are having to draw the graph from scratch yourself, again, you will have a couple different options for your performance assessment. And also, we do not want to have any gaps in our bars either. So, since I have this tool on here to do my straight edge, that's what I will begin with. And I will hopefully leave enough space to be able to label my axes without things getting too crowded. So here's my x-axis that will end up being labeled with my frequency shortly. Here's my, there's my y-axis. Here's my x-axis. I will label as well. So here's my X and then Y. Okay. And of course we do want our title. So I'm going to slide this out of the way as well so that I have a little bit more space for my title. So the title of my graph, you can make it super detailed if you want, or you can keep it a little bit more generic, but I'm going to call this points scored per game by Jim Shorts. Interesting name there. Okay. So along the x-axis is going to include my intervals, which are the basically the range of points. So that's going to be the points scored. And remember, I have, I'll switch to a different color in case it gets a little crowded here. At least you'll be able to kind of see the difference. So I have 5 intervals. I'll try and space those out best I can. If you have graph paper, that can always help, or again, one of your performance assessments, it's already kind of divided for you. So say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Spaces a little bit better. Try and keep them as even as possible. I'm not measuring them, but for right now, I'm kind of eyeballing them. If you use Microsoft Word, which is the format that this will be in, you can always create a table, and I will show you how to do that tomorrow. But for right now, I'm just kind of showing you the basics. All right, so I'm going to have to label these intervals. So the first one is 0 to 9. Try this again. There we go. So 0 to 9. Second one was 10 to 19. Then I have 20 to 29. Then I have 30 to 39. And 40 to 49. Okay. Okay, now along the y-axis, we have our frequency, which is basically going to be the number of games. If I can write sideways here. It's the number of games that he scored that many points. Okay. And so I will do the same thing where I label. So we go from 1 to 8. You probably start with 0 at the bottom here. And then I need to, probably to make things easy, I'll try and go up to 10 if I can fit it. As long as I can make it up to 8, that's the important part. So let's see. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it looks like I'm only going to go up to 8 for this. Okay. But that's as high as I need to be able to go. All right, so now I basically have to draw my lines for like the top of where the table would be, or top of the bar for the table. So again, I will switch colors here. So for 0 to 9, my line only has to go up to 1. So I'm gonna draw here, and then I'm just gonna go straight down to where that line was that I divided, that I used to kind of divide my intervals. And then this would be shaded in. Again, no gap between my intervals. 10 to 19 should go up to 4. So I'm going to kind of draw this line up to 4, over, and then down. I'm going to kind of shade the other direction here so that they don't run together. 20 to 29 is going to go up all the way up to 8. That's my biggest interval here, or with the most number of games in that range. So all the way up to 8 at the top here, over, and then down. And I'm going to do my shading this way again. All right, 30 to 39 is going to go up to 4, so it should be the same level as best you can without grid paper. Should be the same level as 10 to 19. And 40 to 49 goes up to 3, so just one below that. And there you go. I have my title. I have everything labeled for my intervals. There's no gaps between my bars. I have my frequency labeled over to the side and numbered. I used a straight edge. I've met all of the criteria necessary in order to create my histogram. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and do the next example. As a reminder from what we were looking at yesterday, we were looking at the number of pieces of candy that were eaten throughout the day by various students. So I'm going to take this information that's in this table here, and now I've copied it and pasted it up here. Now I'm going to create my histogram from that. So again, I do want to start by creating using a straight edge to create my axes here. So I will draw my y-axis here, which will be my frequency. I will have my x-axis along the bottom that will have my intervals along it. Again, I actually do have 5 bins, or 5 interval kind of groupings, if you will. All right, so now I need to label everything. I need to start with my title, so I'm going to move this out of the way again. My title has to basically portray the information of whatever I'm trying to show in the histogram or in the table. So my title in this case might be something like candy eaten during the school day, or something along those lines. Again, you can be more specific if you prefer. This will work just fine. So candy eaten during the school day. So I have my x-axis down here that's going to have my intervals. And this will be your number of pieces of candy. So especially when you have numbers on both your x and your y axes with a histogram as opposed to categories that you would have on a regular bar graph, it's important especially to really label these axes because otherwise it can be confusing what the numbers actually represent. For my intervals, again, I have 5 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'll try and space these out better again. There we go. Okay. And I need to label these as well with their values. So this is 0 to 3. This is 4 to 7, 8 to 11. Again, we already decided this when we did our table, but we made sure that they were evenly spaced, basically making sure they have the same number of values in each interval or possible values. So we said they had to cover 4 numbers. And then 16 to 19. All right, along your y-axis, again, you have your frequency, which would basically be the number of students. I have a really hard time writing sideways. Whoa. I see. Make some more space here. All right, so number of students. And then I need to label these. So we went from 1 to 10. So I can start with 0 again along the bottom here. But I do have to make sure I leave room to go up 10 this time instead of just 8. So here's 0. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I will have to make my bars on my histogram go up to the appropriate level for the frequency. So 0 to 3 was the most. So that was all the way up at 10. Then I draw my line down to kind of my dividing line here. A little bit better than that. Press again. And then shade it in. And 4 to 7 goes up to 7. Do a little bit better job with that one. 8 to 11 drops down to 3. 12 to 15 goes up a little bit to 4. Little blip here. For the most part, we had more smaller numbers. And then 16 to to 19 is only 1, so very low. I didn't do a perfect job at lining everything up here, but you get the idea. You want to use a straight edge, kind of like I didn't do here, to make sure things line up a little bit better. But you see, I used a straight edge for my axes. I have my title. I labeled my axes with the frequency and the intervals, and I actually stated what the frequency meant, that it was the number of students, and I stated what the intervals meant, that was a number of pieces of candy. So you could look at this information and basically see that most students actually were not eating that much candy. As we got higher up in the number of pieces of candy, my bars on my graph were shorter for the most part. So now you're going to have a chance to practice this, making your own histograms. If you can get on iExcel, you can do, there's only, I think 3 items I had on there for you to practice. If not, you can go ahead and you can start on your performance assessments. Again, if you get them turned in before that final deadline, I can give you feedback, and you can have a chance to go back and adjust some things in order to get the credit that you need for that extra test grade. So please feel free to, again, email me or get onto Blackboard Collaborate during those office hours if you have any questions on anything, and hopefully this kind of explained it for you so that you don't have too many questions going forward. All right.